Jungkook was taking pictures of everything. The view, the water, the sea creatures he walked into, himself, and of course his husband's stolen pictures. He had a huge smile the whole day, and that was only the start. Taehyung was glad Jungkook was enjoying himself. By the time they were done, the sun was almost setting. He pulled Jungkook somewhere, and the latter didn't ask where they were headed, because he knew he would like it wherever his husband took him. He was with him after all. "Time to eat," was what Taehyung said as they entered a restaurant under the water. Jungkook walked at the different kinds of fishes that surrounded them, from his left to his right and above them. They were under a big aquarium, and they were going to eat dinner there. "This is amazing," he ordered as they took their seats. The waiter served them different kinds of seafood, as expected, and they were just eating happily, when Taehyung suddenly heard sniffles from Jungkook. He looked at the younger, and he was shocked to see him crying while shoving food into his mouth. "What's the problem?" he worriedly asked, putting his utensils down on the table to hold Jungkook's hand carefully. The younger sniffed, his glossy eyes staring guiltily at him before answering, "It's just unfair. How can we eat seafood in front of these fishes? Don't we have hearts?" And he sobbed again, boiling his eyes as he continued eating his food. Taehyung laughed at him, loudly. For a second, he didn't care about the people around them. He just laughed at Jungkook's hilariousness. Jungkook pouted at his husband's reaction, but later on, joined him in laughing. They didn't go back to their hotel yet after eating their dinner. Instead, they stayed outside to watch the night sky. It was a starry night. They were talking about constellations, planets, and the universe, and it could sound unromantic, but Jungkook was very pleased. He loved the nighttime because only then he could stare at the beautiful sparkles in the dark. He wished to watch it with someone special to him when he was younger too. He looked at his husband, and as if planned, the other looked at him too. They smiled at each other, the soft hugs on their lips warming their hearts and making them beat faster. They wanted to hold hands but were too shy to do so, so instead, they stayed there staring at each other. Taehyung might not know this, but he fulfilled two of Jungkook's dreams at the same time. The next day, they were planning to go scuba diving, but unfortunately, pregnant people couldn't try it. Jungkook was slightly disappointed hearing this, but he completely understood why. To make him less disappointed though, they went for the greatest alternative to diving, which was snorkeling. Hearing that immediately lifted the younger's mood because that was totally fine for him. They just needed to take precautions and be extra careful with him, but other than that, it was fine. When Taehyung went out only wearing shorts and topless, Jungkook didn't know if he should feel flustered because of his abs or mad, because how was it that the older could show too much skin while he couldn't? He didn't complain though, just pouted his lips at him, which the other didn't notice. Some girls were shamelessly checking Taehyung out too, and it was either he didn't notice or he just didn't care, but either way, Jungkook didn't like it. He didn't like those eyes scanning his husband's body. He didn't like those flirty smiles and lip bites. He could only breathe calmly again when they went underwater, because then, no one would see those mouth-watering abs. With the snorkeling gears, they started swimming to see different sea creatures personally and up close. Jungkook was once again focused on the view that he didn't notice how Taehyung was only lovingly watching him, watch the beautiful view around him. He looked like a mermaid and the fishes were his pet friends. He looked beautiful, even more beautiful than the ocean itself. Taehyung thought he was becoming insane to think like that, because how could someone be more beautiful than nature? when they only had one similarity? Their beauties were both natural. He thought it was going too quickly. How could someone soften his rock-hard heart in just a few months? How could someone melt his coldness that fast? But then looking at his husband, it struck him immediately. Jungkook's radiant light warmed his frozen heart. His blazing desire broke down his walls because now, Taehyung was left unguarded and worried. Worried because this kind of beauty was deadly. And Jungkook could be the death of him. The minute they ascended from the water, Taehyung excused himself to the bathroom and Jungkook waited for him. He watched other people play on the water, kids splashing around and some adults taking pictures. The way they laughed brought a whole different kind of feeling in his chest, and he felt himself smiling while looking at them. Then he suddenly felt a presence behind him. Thinking it was Taehyung, he looked back with a mouth-splitting smile, but it immediately dropped when it turned out to be someone else. A couple of someones whom he was unfamiliar with. "Why is someone as beautiful as you alone here?" one of the two boys asked, walking closer to him as he took a step backward. "Yeah, mind if we join you?" the other one asked, his words sounding like a statement instead of a question. "I'm actually with someone." Jungkook, feeling uncomfortable around the two guys. The way their eyes scanned his body up and down, brought shivers down his spine, and he didn't like it. The fact that he was still wet from their snorkel session didn't help his situation, so he unconsciously hugged his buddy. "Oh, the one you're with yesterday? Where is he now?" Jungkook looked at the bathroom's entrance, hoping to see his husband walking back to him, but he was not. Jungkook could have escaped the two if they weren't surrounding him, but they were, and that made him feel a little more anxious. "He'll be back any time now," he replied. He jolted when he felt a hand snaked around his waist. "We can stay with you until he returns then," he chuckled nervously as he tried to remove the hand around his waist, but then he felt another hand wrapping around his shoulders. "I'm sure you'll enjoy our company." He suddenly felt helpless, as if he was cornered by predators, and he couldn't do anything but shiver in fear. When Taehyung exited the bathroom, his eyes quickly looked for his husband. He knew the younger would be just around there somewhere, maybe watching either other people enjoy themselves or the sky. But he didn't expect to see Jungkook being mobbed by a couple of guys. He calmed himself, thinking that maybe they were just being friendly to his husband, but when he saw Jungkook's uncomfortable expression, he knew he needed to butt in. His steps towards them were heavy. He didn't like it when they looked at Jungkook with malice, but what triggered him was when they wrapped their arms around him. His hands formed into a fist and his steps came faster than earlier. "I'm sure you'll enjoy our company," he heard the other guy say, and he stopped himself from throwing him a punch, but he was too close to bursting. "I'm pretty sure this man enjoys my company more," he said, voice dropping an octave as he saw how Jungkook's eyes brightened when he saw him. He turned to the guys and removed their grips from his husband before pulling him beside him. "He doesn't need the both of you." He only took one step away from those guys when he felt a hand stop him by grabbing his shoulder. "Dude, don't be rude. We're still talking to him," the guy said, digging his fingers more onto his skin as if warning him. He carelessly slapped the hand away, a bored expression lying on his face. "I don't want you talking to him," he coldly said, turning his back to them again. "Who the hell are you? Are you his boyfriend?" He stopped walking, his grip on Jungkook's arm unconsciously tightening as his patience slowly wore thin. He heard him whimper, and thus, he let his arm go. When he turned to look at the others for the last time, he didn't stop himself from grabbing the neck of the guy's clothes anymore. He glared at him and then at the other guy who grabbed his shoulder, to stop him from doing anything to his friend. "I'm his husband. Go near him again and I won't hesitate to destroy your faces," he said, and he didn't need, want, or have to deny it anymore because yes, he was pissed that these lowlives laid a finger on his husband. Jungkook's eyes were wide open from the shock. He couldn't believe it. His husband was slowly coming out of his shell, and he could feel it. He could feel his emotions. He could feel his anger, his jealousy. He could even feel his fondness. His chest was fluttering from the mere thought of it, and somehow, even though he didn't want to, he started hoping for something more. Their last night there was his favorite, and it was not because Taehyung took him to different places again to sightsee, or because he took him to different restaurants to experience different foods, but because the older had made him feel new emotions.